My friend was diagnosed with cancer, but that's not what killed her. She died from lack of touch. Touch is essential for life and health. Most of us are starving for it, and the situation is being made worse by social distancing. Unfortunately, robbed of touch, we die, or part of us does. Share if you care, like, subscribe to my videos, and I'll tell you why touch is so important. My name is Dr. Vicentin. My friend Sally was denied touch, and that's what took her life in the end. She gave up on living. I'll tell you how that happened and how to save your loved ones from the awful burden of separation and loneliness. And when it's safe and when it's appropriate, give someone this gift of touch. It has a profound and moving effect on our souls. And you will free them of isolation and stimulate systems necessary for survival. During World War II, infants were warehoused in incubators, and they were dying. The doctors didn't understand why. They were given heat, light, nutrients, water, everything except touch. And someone came up with the brilliant idea of having nurses go in there and hold the babies. And then they started to thrive again. There are sensory receptors on the backs of our heads, on our necks, on our shoulders. And when they're stimulated, they release life-giving chemicals that enliven and heal us from within. Oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, just to name a few. But they're necessary. They make life worthwhile. They're pleasurable. Chimpanzees are our closest genetic relatives. They share over 98% of our DNA. And they get in touch a lot. They hold hands. They kiss each other. They pat each other on the back. They're in constant contact all day long. Scientists have measured it. Average of 10 contacts a day, 45 seconds each time. Are you getting touched that much? Perhaps you need to be. Perhaps there's a minimum daily requirement for touch that's not being met at all. Orphans who are denied touch early on, it sets a pattern for the rest of their lives. They become prisoners in many instances. They walk the street, become prostitutes, drug addicts, homeless, and suicidal. Whew! The days of COVID have been absolutely brutal and brutalized my friend and many others. And I'll tell you about that because she fought a long fight with cancer. Sally was winning the fight as far as I could tell. We were at her bedside. We cheered her on. She was in and out of the hospital for years. And her husband was a champion. He moved into the hospital with her. He stayed with her. He slept with his wife. He bathed her in the morning. He did everything possible to help her. And she was the kind of person who could make friends very easily. She had a real talent, and everyone loved her for it. We were standing online, waiting to get into a movie, and she made friends with the people in front of us. She made friends with the people in back of us, and she had everyone laughing. She was just that kind of person. But in the age of COVID, you can't visit people in the hospital. She was denied access to her family and her friends. We were all excluded. And suddenly she found herself alone. And it was absolutely devastating. You know what it takes to break down the toughest people. If you're in a prison, you know what they do to you if you're in a prison and they want to break you down? They put you in solitary confinement. She felt like she was in solitary confinement. Sure, she had a cell phone. Sure, her family called her, contacted her, she texted, but it's not the same as human touch, I'll point out. And after just 2 weeks of being confined that way, she left the hospital. Only she changed dramatically, just 62 years of age. She turned white. She looked like she aged 100 years. She wasn't steady. She was crushed. She was fragile. And she said, would it be okay if I go, if I let myself go? Would it be all right if I stop taking my medication, if I just take the narcotics now? And we begged her. We said, just go in for 1 more week. You'll finish your care. You could stand on your head for a week. Let's go back into the hospital. Do whatever it takes. We'll be there for you, at least on Zoom, at least over the internet. She says, no, I can't take it like this anymore. And she let herself go. And who could blame her? Isolation is the rule in the age of COVID. It's necessary to protect us from the virus. Her system had been devastated. She had an immune system that was ripped apart by the drugs she was taking. But as a doctor, I've noticed that people under my care are more fragile now than ever before. And when I touch them on the hand, some of them are brought to tears just by touch. We're that desperate. Inside all of us are life-sustaining mechanisms, systems that are stimulated through this simple act. So when it's safe, touch your loved ones. If you have to, use hand sanitizer. Do whatever it takes. But when it's safe and appropriate, touch them as if their lives depended on it. Because they do. Touch them on the back of their heads. This is where the receptors are. On their necks, on their shoulders, on their backs. Touch your sweetie. Touch children. Touch all people. Most of us are starving for touch. Give it to them every day if you can. It meets the deepest of human needs. It takes just seconds. It will cost you nothing. And in doing so, you will reconnect them with the source of life and health. Just think of it. At the end of your fingers is an answer to an acute problem that can be resolved immediately. All you have to do is touch. Hey, give me some comments, subscribe, and I'll be back with something powerful and positive to bring you through this crisis, this global pandemic. Stay in touch.